様、こんにちは。
Thank you for participating the Toyota Foundation International Grant Program Online Luncheon Seminar 2021, Ethics and Logics of International Collaborative Projects. The third session of our fourth series today is titled Working with Various Stakeholders in a Community. I am engaged in a project focusing on cities that suffer from disparity issues and aims to overcome them to realize inclusive cities. We focus on areas with so-called disadvantaged social conditions. In many cases, these spaces are used by socially vulnerable people such as homeless and immigrants. At first glance, they appear to have various unfavorable conditions. However, when you actually go inside, it is not just a disadvantaged place. You find that it is an area that fulfills a variety of functions. In the process, I gradually came to see it as a hub for services rather than as an area with disadvantageous social conditions. The living environment is extremely bad, but this is a place that anyone can access. There is no need for a deposit. The exterior of the building is in shambles, but when you go inside, you can see that it is renovated into a new apartment. The space is small, but the living environment is improved considerably in some cases. In our project, we connected service hubs in the East Asian cities to create a platform where NPOs, scholars like us, and governments can participate. The Asaka district is located in the southeast of Sumiyoshi Ward in Osaka. It has an aging population of 56%, with high percentage of single elderly people, 30.9%, and a large number of households with disabled people, 22.6%, and many of them are on welfare. In Asaka, we are continuing to interact with similar communities in its own East Asian context, including the East Asian Inclusive Cities Network Japan. This is a photo from my visit to South Korea in 2014, where I saw a site where social enterprises are creating jobs. In another word, creating jobs for the socially vulnerable. In 2016, AKY Research Institute was established, which I am now a member of, because we believe that social enterprises are necessary to create jobs in the community and to start businesses that can help solve the problems within the community. In 2018, we were selected for a project called Designing the Future of Unofficial Urban Villages in Megacities of Asia. This story began 10 years ago when the Toyota Foundation supported our initiative to sustain the housing of the Sisu tribe community in the periphery of the Taipei metropolitan area in Taiwan. I was keen to the topic and studied the situation. Later in Jakarta, Indonesia, in a relatively urban area, I came across a story about how a residential area near the sea was forcibly removed and residents were trying to revive the community. I thought that it should be considered together with the Taiwan case. The Sisu tribe community had about 40 houses of Ami people living on the banks of the Sindian River in Taipei County. People were in the process of rebuilding their communities by studying how they lived. At that time, the area was not officially recognized and the Amis were forced to relocate when the river was being developed. But when the enriched and valuable lifestyle of the residents came to be known, a movement was born to learn from them. At the workshop, residents assessed their current lifestyle, gave thought to their surrounding neighbors, and the kind of community they had, and chatted such as, "Oh, we should live closer to each other." They decided on the layout of the village through a series of discussions with such as, we will live nearby the community center because we will run the center ourselves. The Kampong Aquarium, which I mentioned earlier is located right by the sea in Jakarta, was forcibly removed as part of a provincial project to develop a tourist area, and about 700 people living there were suddenly affected, causing great shock. The new governor came to know this and said, "This is not good. Let us recover the area." This was when I came to play my part. The residents were taking the lead to start the rebuilding process. We visited Taiwan from Jakarta. We were allowed to walk around like this. At Sisu, residents were farming in the urban environment, so we were able to see the status and also see the new housing that was being built and how everyone was building their own rooms. We based our activity on an international field school, which is a one-week school that looks like a simple workshop. This was a good way to integrate the various people involved in the project. Relevant people came or were invited, and residents launched many events. People found their roles, and in fact, we have implemented a system that allows various opinions to be passed on to the city hall and the state government. This is the governor. He stated that these unrecognized areas, which I am referring to as urban kampong, is indeed a model for future cities. It has officially become part of the smart city policy of the province because it is a place where people interact, leading human talents to grow, and where new urban systems can be developed. It's now a state policy. The dynamism that emerges from the tense relationship between the government, the first sector, and NPOs and residents, the second sector, the innovation born from the interaction between the hardware of housing and the software of how to live, both projects have such innovation in common. As I mentioned earlier, I think that urban planning tends to be aimed at conforming to a certain standard, or the main purpose of the land use is to increase the market value of the land. But if you look at it from a different perspective, there are many places that are very important, such as historically important places, places where the power of the residents is great, as I mentioned earlier, and places where the efforts of the people as a service hub are very important. If you think that something is important, you don't have to apply the existing framework, but you can think that urban planning can take more action to say, let's go with this or let's approve this. So we should stop using the terms formal and informal and make it official. Even if you come from outside, you are still a member of the community, a member of some form. The first thing I think is that aiming for each person to live in a good mood every day is a common welfare for all. These days, I try to talk of them like senior and junior members of the community. I notice that community building in socially disadvantaged areas, such as the discriminated community or buraku, is conversely more advanced and interesting. I began to think that I should disseminate this in the form of research. So I joined the doctoral program of the graduate school in 2018, and I am still enrolled. In the meantime, as Jason mentioned, I wondered if it would be possible to transmit the rather positive aspects of socially disadvantaged areas, such as various enriching support practice, in a positive way through research. And that is the path I am taking. There are various individuals with various positions, and even NPOs have their own differences in terms of wanting to get along with the government or not. When it comes to the issue of the homeless, The first thing we want to do is to protect the rights of the homeless to be in public spaces, let alone their rights in public space. They need support, and we want to get them into apartments as soon as possible. There are many different stances, and at first, there were some conflicts. Thinking about how to maintain harmony, we created a place where everyone can say what they want, which was probably part of the work of us researchers. There are many different individuals, but the mission itself is the same. I think the network has been very beneficial in helping us figure out how to promote this mission. The locals are currently advocating that Kampong is not a slum. The key phrase is, if the area has an organized environment, then it is not a slum. Even though it looks like a highly dense area, it is not so because it is organized. There is a local organization like Association for Promotion of District Plan in Japan, which is solid. It could work more physically and promote its unique district plans and to be certified for its town planning. Whether or not we can fight gentrification is what we are really struggling with. I think it will be one of the biggest challenges we will face in the future. I think many people in the world think that urban planning should be based on protecting the livelihood of many people. So it is important to change the value of urban planning or to discuss with politicians and people in other fields about what the purpose of urban planning is. In this sense, Asia and Southeast Asia are strong. Until now, urban planning was based on a 10, 20, or 30-year plan, but now we should create plans based on places, people, and small things bottom up. Today's talk made me think that it is necessary to reverse the process in some way. I think it is difficult to make plans based on what is found in the community without having a true sense of it, including policymakers, what they see there and how they interact with it. Going forward, when we are making policy or moving something forward, unless each of us has a sense of what is happening on the ground, it is difficult to discover the true value. Researchers will need to go beyond the boundaries of a researcher to engage with the community. I felt that the inside and outside of the community will also be mixed as we move forward. Thank you very much to all the speakers and viewers.